Prepare for a true revolution.
Actually, you can prove God exists.
Questioning tradition, because what you've been taught isn't always true.
The truth will set you.
Hey, welcome to Truth Revolution. This is where faith and reason meet. I'm Pastor Dave, that's Pastor Jeff, and we are from Revolution Church in Salina, Kansas.
Oh yeah, we're glad to be here with you today. Glad you're joining us. Hey, we meet at Revolution Church every single week. We don't really care what you wear. We believe that God cares more about what's inside a person than what's outside.
Amen.
Especially when you're like first coming to like church, you haven't been to church in 30 years.
Right.
And it's just like, you know what? We're not interested in you having to get all dressed up and preppy looking.
Right, and leave your shame at home because, you know, that's what separates us from God because we're too ashamed to come into his presence by the way we look.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, our sin is what separates us from God.
Right.
But our shame keeps us away.
Yes, okay. Thanks for correcting me, Pastor Jeff.
Yeah, so yeah, I agree. Because Jesus said people don't come to him because they're afraid to step into the light. What they have done is going to be exposed.
Right.
And what we say here all the time is mercy, peace, and love be yours.
In abundance.
In abundance, right?
Yeah.
That's Jude 2. It's from the Bible. Like, look, we don't care what you've done. We've all done dumb things.
Right.
We've all done things that we're ashamed of, thought things that, especially me. And this is just, you know, we just want you to come be part of Revolution Church because we really love you no matter where you're at right now. We meet Sunday mornings at
10 o'clock in the morning.
11:30 in the morning.
And then 5 o'clock in the PM.
So you can come to any of those three services. Unless you're listening to this show a lot later, then just figure out our service times on our website. Right. Our website is truthrevolution.tv, but we got a great show for you today. We're going to answer Bible contradiction as normal, but we're also doing this article by a special guest we've had on the show before. Dave, tell us who this is.
Well, Tom Gilson, he's currently senior editor and ministry coordinator at the Christian conservative web magazine, The Stream. Yeah. Previously, he's worked for Campus Crusade for Christ, Breakpoint, and Ratio Christi. He's written or edited a number of books, including one of our favorites, True Reason.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and his newest book, Critical Conversations, A Christian Parent's Guide to Discussing Homosexuality with Teens, is available on Amazon. Tom, welcome to the show, man.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you back again. And I might add, Tom and I discovered that we both are fantastic trombone players.
Music nerds.
Amazing. He's got the same kind of orchestral trombone I've got.
Yes. It was
orchestral? Oh my gosh.
Something like
that. Yeah. Anyway.
It's good stuff. So we know, because he played trombone like I did, that everything he says is valid.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's actually
that's logic.
That's logically sound.
All the trombonists in the world. Yeah, right.
All right, but hey, you wrote this article, and I saw it yesterday and contacted you, and we said, we got to do this. The naturalistic atheism is an extraordinarily strange and unlikely worldview. Basically put, I'm just going to word this a little simpler. Atheism's worldview doesn't make sense.
Right.
Right?
It's weird. Yeah.
Strange. What prompted you to write this article, by the way?
Well, I don't remember. I don't know where some of my ideas come from. But it started actually, it does come from a previous article I wrote about what would it take for me to give up my faith? And I had, if you go to the article on that you just mentioned, there's a link to it, 50 things that Christianity explains better than other worldviews do. And when I was reading that, I thought, the naturalism in particular doesn't do a very good job of explaining some of these things, and I thought I'd focus in on them. And people think that naturalism, atheism is kind of the default worldview. You start off and your default position should be there's no reason to believe in God unless somebody shows me a reason to believe in God.
Right.
Well, I think that's kind of weird because you start off in a strange position there that's stranger than believing in God.
Yeah, I always find that interesting because when believing in any type of God, you are positing the existence of a God, but I would make that more like not just assuming there's some flying spaghetti monster when there's no evidence. I would make that more akin to saying, wow, I breathe. Stuff happens. I think there's some substance out here that I can't see that's making something happen that I'm not aware of.
Right. Yeah, and if there's nothing involved in any of reality except for time and space and matter and energy, and they're all interacting according to the way they interact, and they can't change because there's this thing going on that we call natural law.
Yeah.
Then there's nothing going on but that. It's just whatever happens, happens because it was determined, destined to happen. And that doesn't leave any room for you and me. It's just the stuff in us.
That's an interesting
the
point.
biggest problem with it.
That is the biggest point. I mean, we have to be absolutely clear on this before we get into the rest of this show. When we're talking about atheism, and a lot of people, I think, miss this. We're talking about a completely naturalistic world where there is no soul to speak of.
Right.
There is nothing immaterial about you. You are a function of all your body parts, cells, and electronic impulses. Would you agree with that?
Well, I would say that, except for there are people who will say, no, atheism doesn't necessarily mean that. And it doesn't. There are other versions of atheism. It's just that this is the one that you run into way more often than all the rest.
Sure.
So that's right.
Yeah. And so what we're going to do today is when we talk about this, we're going to pull out, okay, if it's true that we are the sum of our physical beings, if that sort of atheism is true, then what does that mean? Is it rational at all? And what we come to find out in this article you wrote, which we're going to link to at truthrevolution.tv, so everybody can see this with their own eyeballs. But you point out a few things. And the first one is that rationality actually makes no sense in this sort of worldview. Now, why does it make no sense to actually be rational?
Well, there's three reasons, or basically two, I would say. One is that if it's just a material world, then where did logic and reason come from? It was either out there somewhere and our brains found it, we discovered it, because we connected with something out there, or our brains invented it. Now, if it's out there somewhere among all these, things interacting according to natural law, where the heck is it? I mean, it doesn't have a place to live. There's no place in the midst of things interacting by their fields and their whatever. But there's no place out there for if this and this then this.
Right.
There's no place out there for an inference, a logical inference. Now, if our brains invented it, then what makes us think that the inventions of our brains are actually connected to all of reality? I mean, we're talking about stuff that defines all of reality. I don't know how you know that your brain can do that. And then there's the other problem, and it's kind of really what I said before, too, which is the causal problem. And C.S. Lewis wrote about this in his book, Miracles. Great stuff. But what he said was, basically, if you think that the cause of your conclusion is the logic leading to it, you've got a problem. Like, I think that, famous syllogism, all men are animals, Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is an animal.
Right.
If my last sentence was caused by an inference from the first two, that's fine. Except for naturalism says everything is caused by something else. It's caused by the interactions of your electrochemical processes in your brain, in this case. Well, if it's all caused by one thing, then there's no room for it to be caused even a little bit by the other thing. We've got no reason to think that your logic was the cause of your conclusion.
Yeah.
Okay, now, pause. That makes sense to me. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it makes sense to anybody else.
Yeah.
I said it in such a compressed form.
That's all right. Because, I mean, really what we're getting at is something has to come from either outside of us or inside of us.
Right.
Like there's really no other way for a reality or for a conclusion to be drawn. Truth exists outside of us, or it exists inside of us, or our ability to reason is something outside of us or something inside of us. And if we are merely the sum of our atoms, if it's only inside of us, how do we actually know that what our molecules are telling us is real? I mean, that's one conclusion you can draw from that.
Right.
Because if it comes from within us, your reality is going to be totally different than my reality because they're coming from two totally different sources.
Oh yeah,
or at least we have no reason to know that the other person's reality is the same. What's the connection there?
Yeah,
there has to be something in between that connects us, and what is it?
So in other words, the simple fact that we actually assume, the fact that Richard Dawkins assumes that he wrote a book and other people actually read it, means that he actually believes that something he thinks happened in a real world.
Right.
But he can't know that for sure if he's only materialistic.
Right.
Right. And his thoughts happen in a real world. That is that, if I read his book, his thoughts will be transferred to my consciousness. and so how do his thoughts get from there to there? The ink on the paper does not actually contain thoughts. That's the funny thing about ink. And it doesn't do it on screen. Pixels on a screen do not contain any thoughts. But somehow that gets transmitted in its actual thoughts. This is very non-material stuff going on. And if it's just a material universe, we don't have a room for that.
That's awesome. Of course, on the other hand, if a God created the universe and he created it by certain logical rules, and there really is a physical realm that really exists, and we really have the capacity to see it, then this all makes sense.
Yeah, God. If God is rational, and if rationality is at the very heart of reality, I mean, if it's at the very core of the stuff that makes up everything, and of the person who is at the source of everything, then this is not a problem at all. He can inject reality into every rationality in the world. That's no big deal.
Awesome. Let's go to the next one. Consciousness. Okay. Now, this consciousness is another thing that this atheist worldview doesn't really work with, and why not?
Well, this is the one on which I've actually not studied as much, so I'm gonna yield to some vagueness here. But the conclusion of the people who have studied the best people on this is that the atheist worldview tends to lead towards a conclusion that consciousness is an illusion. There's a couple of famous atheists, philosophers, Paul and Patricia Churchland, who say that quite definitely. It's just an illusion. So does Alex Rosenberg. In a way, Thomas Nagel does too, although he tries to find some other, invent a new solution that he doesn't know what it is for that. But another philosopher, Daniel Dennett, tried to figure out an explanation of consciousness in a very long book that the best people that I've seen looking at it, and his response is that, it comes down to consciousness is an illusion. So guess what? You know what that means? If that's the case, okay, call it an illusion. What you're doing is you're force-fitting it. You've got a worldview called materialism or naturalism or atheism, and consciousness just doesn't make sense in that worldview. Yeah. So therefore, what are we going to do? Are we going to reject the worldview, or are we going to force-fit our image of humans into this worldview? Yeah. I don't think I fit there. That's force-fitting it.
The funny thing is that Nagel and Rosenberg will even agree that it doesn't fit. Why would they even communicate that in the first place? Because the idea that they would even communicate shows that they're aware of their and other people's consciousness.
Sure. Now, Nagel says, this is a problem. We got to work on it. We got to solve it. Rosenberg goes so far as to say that there's no such thing as thought. And when I heard him say that at the end of a debate he had with William Lane Craig, I immediately downloaded his book, which is something like the Unbeliever's Guide to Atheism. I forget the exact title. And I thought, no, he didn't say that, but he did. Wow. He said, if you think about the Eiffel Tower, there's nothing in the molecules of in your brain that's about the Eiffel Tower. So therefore, you're never thinking about anything, which I thought that's a strange thing to think about.
Sometimes atheists will say, I actually like Christians who live out what they believe. Right. And you know what? I actually like atheists who are logically consistent. I actually can appreciate that. I don't think it makes sense, but I like it.
No, right.
Now, hey, we're going to have to go to a commercial break here, so we're going to have to pause for just a minute. We're going to be right back. We're going to talk about meaning and purpose, morality, a sense that we are meant to be better. Right. All these things really don't fit in an atheist worldview if atheists are right. Now, we're going to also do Bible contradiction. Dave, where should they go in the meantime?
TruthRevolution.tv.
That's right. So grab your phone, even if you're driving, and go to...
No.
Okay. No. Just grab your phone if you're not driving and go to TruthRevolution.tv or your computer or whatever. And there you can find this show. You can share it. You can contact us. Mm-hmm. We answer every question that's sent in. Not always on the air, but we answer every single one that gets sent in. So we'd love to have you contact us and let us know. Also, we'd love to have you out at Revolution Church because we believe God has something great for you. Not just being scared of what we've done in the past, but looking forward to what God has for us in the future. Right. So come out to Revolution Church. We'll be right back after this break, and we'll do more with Tom Gilson.
Truth Revolution.
And we're back. Talking to Tom Gilson today about his article, Naturalistic Atheism is an Extraordinarily Strange and Unlikely Worldview.
Or atheism's worldview just doesn't make sense.
Right.
So that's the other way. But now, again, Tom Gilson is the editor of True Reason, and he is also the author of a book, Critical Conversations, a Christian's Parents' Guide to Discussing Homosexuality with Teens. Hey, Tom, you got a copy of that book with you right there, right? You want to hold it?
I got it right here.
Look at that.
Yeah.
That's
published by Kriegel. Can you see it? I don't have my frame.
Yeah, so we
here.
can see it.
Good. Okay.
Looks great. Now,
yeah. And this is a book that is really parent friendly. Did you think you could talk about this issue with your kids? The answer is that's actually not hard if you're equipped, and you really need to do it too.
That's good. I might even suggest, I got kids from 1 to 10, and so I don't actually have teenagers right now, but I'm thinking about ordering it because, to be real honest, you're having to deal with this stuff at younger and younger ages. So
I think the title was a mistake there. Actually, it's talking about homosexuality with kids.
Yeah, and so I got 10-year-olds, but it'd still be appropriate for me to get, right?
Yes.
I mean, this is we were just in a story the other day, and I mean, this is in our society today. Homosexuality is normal. Whatever you want to call it, it's normal. Right. It's everywhere, and so we want to be able to not. We don't want to be the type of Christians who go, we don't. That's not. First of all, that's not how we even treat people we disagree with. I mean, we need to be able to love people who are in homosexual lifestyles. We need to be able to love them, treat them with respect and kindness, and be able to talk with our family about it in a way that's honoring to them and not shock and awe. And so, let's handle this in a loving way all around. So, again, that book,
right. Yeah.
Critical Conversations. So that came out just this month, right?
No, it's been out since February.
Since February. Okay. Yeah. Great. Okay.
That was really close, though. Right.
I was only half a year off.
You're in the same year. Yeah.
You know what I actually did was I found out about it this month. So that's what it really is. All right, let's get back into this. The reason we don't think an atheistic worldview actually makes sense. And we talked about consciousness. Let's get in now meaning and purpose. We'll get through this one pretty quickly, but tell us why meaning and purpose doesn't make sense.
Well, here's the deal is I've interacted with atheists about this, and I say, where do you get a sense that you're connected to something that's beyond yourself? It's something that will last. When you die, is it all over? And the answer, from their perspective, yeah, it's all over. That's it. Nothing of you remains. Your legacy remains, but, really that's, at the most, a couple generations if you're lucky. And there's just nothing there to aim toward. And they say, wait a minute, we can invent our purpose for ourselves. We've got the ability to make meaning and make purpose for our lives, which is fine, but still it's over when it's over.
Yeah.
And I think, too, this is one of these force-fit things because, yeah, I can make a sense of purpose for my life if it's, being a better trombone player, which it used to be.
Whatever.
Appreciate that. And so, but I am convinced that most of us, if not all of us, have got a sense that that's not the whole story. And so we have to squash that. We have to hide it down. We have to jump it, push it out of the way in order to believe in this naturalistic worldview and say, nope, that's not me. That's fake. Well, but we know that it is.
Yeah. And actually, this leads really, really well into one of your other ones on here that says our sense that we were meant to be better than we are. Like this idea doesn't fit in an atheistic worldview either. Tell us more about that.
Well, we were meant to be better. People say, all these wars, they're wrong. This racial division is wrong. This shouldn't be this way. We were meant to be better than this. We're trying to get better. And by the way, we haven't been getting any better for all these centuries, but we're meant to be better. Well, who said?
Yeah.
On evolution, if we just came as a result of evolution, we weren't meant to be anything.
Right.
We are what we turned out to be. And evolution does not have progress. That's a myth. Evolution is not heading in some direction. It's not moving us towards better than we are. Well, the thing about Christianity is that it does explain that God intended us. He created us innocent. He intended us to have a perfect relationship with Him, and we blew it. We turned away from him. We rebelled against him. And there's still that memory that there's something better we were meant to be.
Yeah.
And so there's a sense of real direction there that just doesn't happen in atheism.
It kind of reminds me of the quote from C.S. Lewis. Here we're quoting him again, but this is a paraphrase, but if there lies within you a real sense that you don't belong in this world, the most probable cause is that you were made for another. And this sense that we actually have meaning, that when you just lie on the couch all day long, intuitively that's not what you were made for. How do you know that? We know it because there's something outside of us. It's not just us. There is a real purpose and a real creator who really designed us for a reason. And as Tom mentioned, I mean, when God created us, we were perfect. Our goal, our existence was there to honor God, to love God, to be in relationship with him. That all broke when man and humankind sinned, and we've been trying to fix it. But really, the only way to fix that is through Jesus Christ's sacrifice on the cross. I mean, that sacrifice is what pays the price for our sin. That sacrifice is what restores our relationship with God. It actually restores our relationship with each other. It restores everything. We talked about this on Sunday, right? Yeah. Everything from natural disasters to thistles in your lawn to your relationship between you and your mother-in-law. Like this all actually gets repaired by Jesus on the cross paying for that sin that we messed up. And so that's why we say we have to come to Jesus. We can't just fix this on our own.
Right. We spend all of our time creating ways to try and fix the problem, and it's just spinning our wheels in life.
Yeah. I mean, do you find people try to create meaning for themselves apart from God?
Oh, sure. And what are they going to do? I mean, they just take something that where did it come from? It came from their talents. Well, those are just whatever. You can use your talent for anything. It comes from some kind of a moral purpose, maybe, that they got from somewhere. But this leads into another question. Where did it come from? And is it real?
And we're going to hit the moral thing in just a second. Right now, we're going to go ahead and jump in and do a Bible contradiction.
Bible contradiction.
All right, this week's Bible contradiction is called Solomon's Sacrifice.
Now, this comes from the thinkingatheist.com because Tom's website is Thinking Christian.
Yeah.
So... Okay, this one's from the thinkingatheist.com.
All right, here we go. 2 Chronicles 7:5 says, and King Solomon offered a sacrifice of 22,000 head of cattle and 120,000 sheep and goats. So the king and all the people dedicated the temple of God.
Okay. So they 20,000.
Right. However, 2 Chronicles 7:8-9. So Solomon observed the festival at the time of the 7 days, and all Israel with him, a vast assembly, people from Lebo, Hamath, to the Wadi of Egypt. On the 8th day, they held the assembly, for they had celebrated the dedication of the altar for 7 days and the festival for 7 days more. So in reality, that comes to 22,000 oxen, 120,000 sheep in a single week.
Ooh.
That's about 850 animals an hour. That's 14 animals every minute. That's a sacrificial machine.
This is, the Bible's done for.
Yeah.
That's it. It's had it.
Hey, man, let's cut the power.
All right.
Turn out the lights.
No, here's the deal. All right. So we have a cracked acronym. It's CRACKED. This is how we study the Bible. This is how we resolve contradictions. The A stands for...
Author's intent.
Author's intent, right? When we read something, when I read anything, we can't just say, what does it mean to me? But what was being communicated? What was the author trying to communicate to us? And a lot of times when we ask that question, we'll find that I was inserting stuff in there that wasn't actually meant to be inserted in there by the author. So, if Dave writes me a letter and he's like, hey, Jeff, I love you, bro. Let's go out sometime. What? And I'm like, is he asking me out? Like, he's not, but I've just inserted that in there, right?
That's fear.
Really what he wanted to do was talk to me because he has, he caught me doing something wrong. And,
which is more likely, I'm sure.
Right. So, so what we do when we read 2 Chronicles here in 7, we're inserting some stuff into this that I don't think was meant to be. And here's what we're inserting. I'm going to give you an analogy. Imagine that I told you Disney World in Florida had 54,040,000 guests last year. Okay, that was the actual number. Now, Magic Kingdom's only 107 acres. That's 12 people per square foot.
You can't do that.
That you could be like, you're a liar. Well, you didn't listen, right? I didn't say those people were all there on the same day. I didn't say it was for Magic Kingdom. You weren't listening. That was for the entire year of 2015, and that was for 4 different parks. And so they were split up 12 months, 4 different parks.
Right.
Similarly, it says Solomon's festival took 7 days, and then there was another 7 days. But nowhere does it say that all the sacrifices were completed in 7 days.
Right.
Also, nowhere does it say that how many priests were working on it. There were thousands of priests, and so we've just assumed something. Maybe there was hundreds of priests working on this for months that we just don't know. Hey, Tom, is there anything else you want to add to that?
Well, I think that when you run into a contradiction like that, that's just uncharitable. It's not just saying that the Bible is wrong. It's saying that whoever wrote those numbers down is really an idiot. And they can't do math. But today we can, because we're in the 21st century.
Yeah.
Well, give it a little bit of a sense of grace. Like maybe the reason they wrote it the way they did is for some normal reason, like in the original intent, everybody that they were talking to knew that it wasn't supposed to happen in that short of time, and if we don't know it now, okay, but it's being rude.
In our cracked
assume that
it is in our cracked acronym, the second C actually stands for credibility. Like, hey, if this guy wrote this book, give him a little credit. He's not an idiot.
Right. He's got to go back and read this and be like, why did I write that?
Okay, so our show's got 30 more seconds in it, but can you hang with us, Tom, for another 10 or 15 minutes on just the podcast portion only?
Sure, glad to.
Okay, great. So we're going to be right back. Everybody listening on the radio, you want to make sure that you get our podcast so you don't miss a lot of these extra goodies that we do. TruthRevolution.tv.
That's where you want to go.
Or you can load up iTunes or whatever, type in TruthRevolution.tv and get our podcast. We're going to finish this out with Tom Gilson today, author of True Reason and his new book. So make sure you get that. We're going to link to them both from TruthRevolution.tv.
Truth Revolution.
And we're on the podcast. Congratulations to all you people that made it. Glad to have you.
Yes, you have the podcast, so you're the winners of today. All right, so now, Tom, we're coming back here. We left off with talking about the sense that we are meant to be better than we are, but that actually leads into the question of morals. I mean, a moral compass, a moral sense is really a hard thing to argue for if you're claiming a naturalistic worldview. Talk about that.
Yeah, well, where do morals come from? Morality has to do with duties and obligations and values, and duties and obligations are owed to somebody or something. And if I'm caught here, and so who is that? What is it that this duty or obligation is owed to? Well, the typical thing that you're going to get from atheists is that it's just some kind of a they don't say it this way, but it comes down to a cultural or personal preference. Our culture has decided that in contrast to several decades ago, that racism is really a bad thing.
Yeah.
And so, okay, we've got a different preference now than we had then. It comes down to cultural values. And the question, I've actually had someone say, I said, if it comes down to cultural values, then are you willing to say that in their time and in their place, when the culture supported it, that, for example, slavery in pre-Civil War South was good, and the Holocaust in the world where the German approval of the Holocaust events. Are you willing to say that those were good in their time and place? And he said, yes, those were good in their time and place because he defined good according to cultural preference. Other people, Sam Harris famously, will say that it has to do with human well-being. And I say, well, sure, we can tell some things about human well-being, except for we actually don't get very far with that. Because first of all, does well-being mean, for example, being free to do whatever feels good? And some people define that way, doing whatever I want. Or does well-being mean, does it mean building for future generations? And besides which, what made well-being good?
Right.
That's what made it good. Corey, we know it's good, but what made it good?
And I suppose you could even ask Sam Harris then, well, the problem with that is that Nazi Germany thought that they were working for their own well-being. for their human well-being. I mean,
Right.
that's such a sketchy thing to even base it on. I have found when I have these discussions with people who are genuine atheists who've really researched it, they really will. Usually the go-to topic I bring up is rape. Is rape wrong? And they say yes, and they will argue with me for a while. Yes, rape is wrong. It's always wrong. At some point, they have to admit, well, it's wrong because I say it's wrong. And if we didn't agree that it was wrong, then it wouldn't be wrong. And that's where they have to go.
Right.
Which is not.
We're kind of stuck with that too, and you get into what's called the moral progress problem, which is, okay, was it moral progress when we went from deciding racism is bad or good to deciding that racism is bad? I think that's moral progress. But you know what? Back then, racism was the cultural norm, and that's what defined good. Today, not racism is a cultural norm, and that's what defined good. We went from something that was defined as good to something that's defined as good. And in the middle, somebody was saying, no, that's the cultural norm is bad. Well, if you're fighting the cultural norm, then you're fighting what everybody thinks good. You're rotten.
You're bad.
Martin Luther King was a rotten guy on that view.
Yeah, really. I mean, you'd have to agree that he was terrible for doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, unless, I don't know. I suppose they would make the argument that tides are changing, and if you're on the front of that tide, then that's probably okay. I don't know.
I don't know how they do that. But here's the thing. You have to force fit it. If you're going to be an atheist, a materialist, naturalist, you have to force fit and say, okay, we can make this kind of make sense. But on Christianity, what we know is that God created us all in his image, created us all with equal worth, equal value, and God believes in, he's really strong on being on the side of the oppressed and against the oppressor. And we have that as moral truth, and we can just aim in that direction.
Absolutely. I mean, it's in all the major prophets. Take care of the oppressed, take care of the orphan, the widow, the needy, stand up for those who are being oppressed by, judge rightly, do not give favoritism to the rich.
Yeah, I'm going to back up just a little bit here because it just popped in my mind. Basically, that worldview that we were talking about where Martin Luther King would be a bad person, that means that any kind of revolution that goes against what is the societal norm at that time is evil and bad. That means that we can never advance. So in that world, and advancing to anything good is bad.
Whoa.
Yeah, no, just for the sake of your listeners, I need to say that we flashed by that really quick.
Yeah.
And it didn't develop the whole story. You might want to look up on the web the moral progress problem having to do with ethics, and you'll find it in more developed more completely than we just did. If it doesn't sound quite complete, it's because we're not trying to do that all the way complete.
No, that's true. I mean, we're spending 5 minutes on it on a radio show. That's quite different than a 500-page book that's been
there you go.
For you. So, all right, good. Your next one down here is the real existence of goodness and beauty. Now, I find this one to be very compelling. The idea that I find something truly beautiful, something truly good. A baby is born, there's real life there. It is truly good. It is truly beautiful, and not just because I like it. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I was at a Bible study one morning several weeks ago, and the pastor who was there introduced me as a Christian apologist who can tell you about all these evidences for Christianity. And I said, okay, I study that, but did any of you see the sunrise yesterday morning? It was awesome. It was way beyond good. And what's it for? I mean, what good is a sunrise? Well, it was beautiful, and the beauty is out there. It is beautiful. But no, really, it's not beautiful. It's just this, just photons reflecting off of vapors in the air. And refracting and bouncing around, and the beauty isn't in that. There's no beauty in that. There's no goodness in an act of self-sacrificial love. It's only in your perception of it.
Right.
Well, guess what? You can say that as a naturalist, but that's force-fitting it, because you're having to take your sense of reality and twist it and say, okay, that beauty isn't out there. Okay, if you want me to believe that, I'll try really hard to believe that beauty isn't out there. But But look, I am right now looking past my computer screen out the window at some really gorgeous leaves, fall leaves, and the beauty is out there. And in Christianity, we don't have to force fit anything. The beauty's out there because God created beauty.
Yeah, and we're not merely saying that light hits me, produces a chemical reaction in my brain that makes me feel good. Yeah. No, we're saying that literally is beautiful. Right. It literally, even if I didn't have eyes, it would still be beautiful. I just wouldn't be able to see it.
Yeah, if you listen to a Bach concerto, one of the Brandenburg concertos, or a cello sonata, or something like that,
or a
and
trombone solo.
You can play a Bach cello sonata on the trombone, but it's really hard.
Yeah,
but anyway,
that's true.
At least one of them, the D minor, but the
Bluebells of Scotland we'll do that.
There you go.
Let's kill that bunny, guys.
But if you say, that music gives a good feeling inside of me, that's really kind of bland. That music is beautiful, is more true, and everybody knows it's more true. And that knowledge of the thing itself being beautiful or good doesn't work on naturalism or atheism.
Right. Let me pause at something here real quick.
Okay.
Hollywood does a great job in hiring these composers that make musical scores for their movies to make a scene very poignant. We want to drag emotion out of a person. Well, if you watched it without the music, it might not be as impactful. Yeah. But you watch it with the music, you got that lump in your throat, and there's that tear coming down in your eye. And really, that's the beauty of the music, because it pulls the emotion out of you.
Absolutely.
And if it was just subjective, if it was beauty of the eye of the beholder or the ear of the beholder, in that case, then Hollywood wouldn't do it. There wouldn't be any point, because everybody would see something different.
Right. Pots and pans banging might be what does it for me musically. Right.
Yeah. Maybe we're all involved to respond to a minor key with some sense of sadness.
That's what it is. Yeah.
But
we're saying it's actually beautiful.
In the music.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really in the music and not just in our oral responses.
That's good. All right, let's. I want to jump here to your final one. Really, the real lack of goodness and beauty, or the existence of evil. We, as Christians, or at least I suppose Diaz could agree with us on this. The existence of evil is only sufficiently talked about by us, and not by atheism. Why is that?
Right. It's because, again, we're talking about to put it crudely, atoms colliding with each other, or subatomic particles interacting. What's good or bad about that? And what is it about them kind of multiplying together and getting more complex that makes them all of a sudden have a moral character to them? It's still just things interacting according to natural law, doing what must be done because natural law doesn't give them a moral choice. And so where does goodness all of a sudden pop into it? Where does evil all of a sudden pop into? Oh gosh, that was a really bad collision you just made there. Or if it's expanded into our brains. What's going on inside of our brains is electrochemical stuff, and what makes them all of a sudden have some kind of a moral good bad quality to them. I don't know where that gets invented along the way from the lowest level to the highest level. All of a sudden it pops in there. How?
Doesn't make sense.
I don't know.
There's
can't
no
figure it out.
Rational reason. Yeah. So.
And before I became a Christian, a student, freshman at Michigan State, and before I became a Christian, and I wondered about this. Where in the world does goodness come from? Where does morality come from? And I thought, I can't figure out how it would work unless there's some kind of a God to make it happen. And after that, after I accepted Christ, I still kept asking that same question. I thought, no, I'm just a stupid, college freshman, sophomore, and so on. How could I'm sure I'm wrong about this. I'm sure there's some good explanation apart from God. I've been looking and looking and looking, and there are explanations, but they're force fit. They don't make sense with the fullness of what it means to us to be human.
Yeah, that's good.
They don't work as well as a Christian answer.
Wow. Hey, thanks, Tom, for joining us today. It's been such a pleasure talking to you again.
Well, it's been fun. Thanks.
All right. And hey, if people want to get your new book, Critical Conversations, A Christian Parent's Guide to Discussing Homosexuality with Teens or Children,
Right.
They can get that on Amazon. Any other place
That's
they
a
can
good
go?
place.
That's the best place?
Yep.
All right. Go to Amazon and grab that book, and we're going to link to it. You can also get a copy of his book, True Reason, from
We'll link to
Amazon
that
as
too.
well. So we'll link to that as well. Tom, always been a pleasure. We just, God bless you in your ministry. Thanks for joining us today.
And thank you.